Hello, I'm Dylan Case, and today we will be discussing home and school connections within a secondary structured English immersion environment. This means that we teach students coming from different cultural backgrounds, known as English language learners or ELs. As educators, it is our duty to build rapport with them at school, connect with their families, and make them feel welcomed as a functioning member of our learning community. When working with students from different parts of the globe in a mixed classroom, one must keep in mind that this may be a completely new environment than the previous one they came from. The effectiveness in which an individual learns is often defined by their comfort with their surroundings. This can be a difficult transition for some because the majority of people around them communicate differently and their body language projects different signals than what they are used to. Language and movement are a large part of someone's culture. That's why it is important to make students aware of how we approach others and explain the meaning of cultural competence. This means being able to accept, appreciate, and understand those who come from a different background. This may come in the form of teaching students how to ask appropriate questions about one's heritage. It may also come in the form of teaching others not to make assumptions about one's ethnic practices and teach them to ask why instead. Familiarizing students and laying a foundation of cultural appreciation opens the door for acceptance. One way an educator can decrease students' level of ignorance in a fun and learning appropriate manner is by hosting cultural celebrations within their classroom. Another way is by assigning projects on another country and a particular ethnic group's traditional practices. Many students may enjoy these experiences. However, educators must study up on cultural differences as well. For example, a majority of the time, a lack of eye contact in the US means that the individuals you're talking to are not interested in what the speaker has to say. However, in other cultures, it may be recognized as a sign of disrespect to make prolonged eye contact, especially with someone who is seen as an authoritative figure. As professionals, it's best to educate ourselves on this matter so we're not dissatisfied with a student's performance and understand that it's because their customs are different. Aside from doing our own research, we can aid EL students by teaching them how to effectively communicate with others. It is our duty as instructors to effectively teach them how to read, write, speak, and listen. Now, this takes multiple steps to accomplish, but we can start by giving students access to mainstream curriculum, giving them language support, and translated material. Over time, they'll be able to pick up more and more on the vocabulary, so one can gear their lessons towards scaffolding, sentence frames, word scramblers, translation, and close speaking. Once they've bypassed this, they can move on to communication with another teacher or mainstream individual their age to further develop their vernacular. They may also begin to deliver short presentations. However, one should encourage students to be inclusive and peer coach, translate material with assistive technology, or communicate via listening apps. In order to celebrate cultural diversity on projects, an instructor can assign them to a group and have each member work on a specific aspect of the presentation. This forces your students to communicate with one another and translate each other's words so that each person is on the same page inside and outside of school. Switching gears, let's turn our focus to the classroom of students themselves. Some ELs are gifted, while others require specific needs. One way to monitor both types of students is by tracking their scores on assessments, homework, and in-class assignments. Collaborate with other teachers as well and ask them how they are performing when they go to specials, gym, art, music, technology, and etc. Their progress or lack of will let you know if you need to take further steps. If you see a lack of progress, check their score on the WIDA Access, aka the Illinois EL Placement Test. Next, check their level of proficiency in their own language. If they are behind grade level, then one can provide them literature to read that is below their grade level to practice their reading, writing, and speaking skills. Provide them with translations as well. Using scaffolds are also extremely helpful for students when it comes to organizing information. Collaborate with support staff for students with sensory issues or unbalanced motor skills. PT and OT services provide gross motor and fine motor services. If students are experiencing emotional behavior issues, collaborate with a social worker and allow them to go to a calming space as needed. When establishing routines and procedures, it's best to stay informed by consistently checking to see whether a student has an IEP or 504 plan. One student may have preferential seating, another may have an emotional behavior disorder, a seeing impairment, learning disability, twice exceptional, gifted, ADHD, speech disorder, or etc. It's best to create a seating chart and move students around as needed. Provide assistive technology access, visual cues, picture schedules, and timers. Have your procedures listed and clearly stated with minimal words so that all students know what's expected of them. This ensures smooth transitions. Most of the time, their paperwork will let you know what services they need. As a teacher, allow them their accommodations, be flexible and understanding. Religious exemptions must also be abided by according to federal law. So make sure you're aware of student absences due to holiday and allow them to make up any work that is missed. As a professional in this field, it's best to know and understand your community's demographics well before they enter your classroom. Knowing this information will help you prepare and further explore what you need to know about your students' cultural practices and home language before their arrival. Examining the home language survey will let you know what level your students are speaking the English language at, and will also dictate the level of bilingualism. While communicating with families, use Google Translate or AI to assist you as you send and decode messages. Use listening apps when calling if no other language is spoken, and have a translator come to meetings. To engage them within the community, host cultural heritage nights with food, festivities, and music tailored to their liking. Have some members of the community display artistry, tell stories, and explain the history behind their practices as well. Thank you for listening.